It made his head spin and his cheeks feel warm with the surge of blood. Averting a potential fall necessitated that he take a seat. He had hoped no one would ever find this. Absolutely no one should have looked at it. Yet there it was, in digital form, running on his boss's computer. Tony Sherb felt at home in the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. He had worked in every branch of government involved in transportation and justice, from traffic units to transportation agencies. Despite his deep affection for his work, he knew a significant shift was necessary and could no longer be postponed. After 29 years of making friends on and off the force, it was time to retire. In order to catch fish, he'd have to put down his badge and take up a fishing rod. Just before he left, Sherb didn't realize the entire army was about to see a side of him he'd rather keep hidden. Part of him was still embarrassed by the great praise he had received from his supervisors and coworkers. They had described him as extremely professional and exceptionally competent. But if they knew what he did in that elevator, he wondered what they would think of him. Although he was in the final weeks of his employment, he still had to complete all of his duties. The paperwork and public calls he had to make seemed to go on forever. Because everyone was so busy, his coworkers would often throw little farewell parties. He looked around and saw a universal expression he'd seen countless times over the past 29 years. Anxiety caused it. There is pressure on every police officer. It was necessary to find ways to relax in spite of the risks of the job, the constant requirement of professionalism, and the watchful eyes of the public. However, in order to deal with the stress, some police officers began engaging in risky behavior. There were many he knew who resorted to smoking too much or drinking too much to cope. Because of this, his elevator ritual was crucial. His cheerful disposition for the past few decades may be attributed to this one thing. But Sherb had no idea his boss was planning to put a covert camera smack in the middle of his secure area. Sherb's employer apparently put the camera as a precaution after receiving reports of technical difficulties with the elevator. Sherb had no idea that the entire building would be watching when he began his ritual. He took out his phone and launched his go-to program. It wasn't fancy, but wow, did it do the trick. He started to groove to the music as the rhythm and melody carried him forward. The movement depicted here was not dancing. Silly, gyrating convulsions, yet they helped him work off the tension. The elevator door then opened, and a coworker entered. Sherb resumed his formal position instantly, but the music continued. The song was probably something she never would have guessed he liked, so his coworker's eyebrows went up when she heard it. It was her adorable grin that prompted his epiphany. With that, he called it quits. That was irrelevant now, however. He was free to act as silly as he pleased. Why shouldn't he enjoy the happiness that came with his elevator time, after all? Perhaps he can provide happiness to those around him as well. Following this, he resumed his dance. Suddenly, the policeman's eyes widened in shock. There was a tense moment while she took in her surroundings. Then, with a stunning display of YOLO, she joined in as well. Her daytime reserve fell away, and she became just as into it as he was. They got down to Salento's whip nay nay and lip synced to the music until someone came back through the door. The boss himself was expected to arrive this time. Both Sherb and his accomplice froze in a perfectly businesslike position. As a token of his respect for the guy he had worked with for so long, he even saluted the sheriff. He paused the music as well, just to be safe. However, that's not the final chapter. This isn't the best part, though, it gets better. Sherb and the woman exchanged sly glances as soon as the sheriff exited the elevator and another officer entered. He started the music up again, and they started dancing like they were just moments before. As he looked in disbelief, the man seemed to be shocked. Where would he go from here, though? It was very attractive. In a word, it was incredible. Even the third person who joined in quickly found their place. A fourth officer joined the elevator dance party and did the electric slide. The whole affair was being filmed, and the boss was about to witness it, and no one had any idea. While it wasn't out of the norm for Sherb to be summoned to the sheriff's office, he quickly turned white when he watched the security footage on his boss's laptop. His superior questioned, "Is this what you do in your spare time?" Sherb took the standard stance, with his hands behind his back and his body erect. Responding, "Yes, sir." Again, the sheriff cast his eyes over the footage. Suddenly she cracked a grin. The response was, "That's fantastic." Sherb was on the verge of collapsing on the floor. The manager then asked for his permission to share the news on the company's social media accounts. Police officers need to be seen as human by the public. I also appreciate the sense of community that it fosters. Everyone in the workplace was stunned when they watched the view count soar over 7 million. They had anticipated maybe a few likes and a couple comments at most. They had achieved viral status. The boss even went the extra mile of adding his own compliments to the video. "Tony is without a doubt one of the funniest and friendliest deputies I've ever encountered. His career was brilliant, and he will be sorely missed. Simply an excellent human being and deputy." Sherb's retirement began at the end of the day. After wishing him well, they said their final goodbyes. It was expected that many of them would begin to practice their own version of the elevator ritual when riding alone or with a small group of coworkers. "I found it to be a really effective stress reliever." In addition, this approach to the day was considerably more beneficial to one's health. In addition to his professional legacy, which spanned nearly 3 decades, Sherb also left the workplace with his own distinct groovy imprint.